edition of Club and Country. I'm Russ Thaler. Coming up in just a bit, Calen Carr is going to sit down with Sporting Kansas City's Roger Espinoza to talk about playing for Honduras and their World Cup qualifiers coming up later this year. But coming up right now, let's bring in former U.S. national team member and also an MLS team exec and an MLS star, and now the host of a brand new podcast available on iTunes. It's called the Mutant Gene Podcast. Let's bring in Alexi Lalas. Alexi, thanks for joining us. Great to have you on the show.
My pleasure. Greetings from our FS1 set here. We're getting ready for some Champions League.
All right, look, we know guys like Michael Bradley, and we're going to see Josie Altidore. We're going to see Clint Dempsey in the Copa America roster. So I want to talk about some other guys who maybe there's some question marks surrounding, like Steve Birnbaum. We saw him start against Guatemala in a World Cup qualifier. He's got large competition at the center back position. What does Birnbaum have to show to Jurgen Klinsmann between now and camp maybe to get himself on the ultimate Copa America roster?
Well, I think anytime you're talking about a center back for the national team, first and foremost is when you get that opportunity, and you will because Jurgen Klinsmann is going to throw a lot of different people out there. When you get that opportunity, you got to grab it with both hands. So for Birnbaum, I think it's a consistency when you get in there and looking good with not just the guy that you're standing next to, but maybe even more so with that back four, because we all know that consistency and a coordination is key to any back four.
You know, you might be able to say the same thing about the midfield as well. A lot of people thought and maybe hoped that Darlington Nagbe would become a regular in the midfield for the U.S. national team. Obviously, now he is out with injury for we don't know how long. What does that do to Lee Nguyen's chances of ending up on this Copa America roster?
Well, I think Lee Nguyen is a different type of player than a Darlington Nagbe. Undoubtedly a creative, attacking-minded type of player who can do things in the moment where you sit up in your seat and you hold your breath because the potential for something magical happening exists each and every time he touches the ball. When you look at Lee Nguyen, I think Lee Nguyen is much more on the inside now than the other guys we mentioned. I just think it's a question of, is Jurgen Klinsmann willing to play with that type of player, that type of creative attacking midfielder in a consistent way? Because if it's just when we play against teams that we're better than, okay, but then you're just kind of a role player. And we want a player, I think, that has that type of creative and attacking spirit that is there game in and game out. And even against good teams and elite teams is able to be the guy that you go to, that can control the play and the rhythm and create those moments of magic. I'm not yet sure that Lee Nguyen is. But once again, if he gets that opportunity on Jurgen Klinsmann, you better take it.
All right, a couple of young guys who've been getting some looks from Jurgen Klinsmann with the senior roster, Ethan Finley and Jordan Morris. How does the fact that the U23s didn't qualify for the Olympics affect Klinsmann in general in his roster selection at this point? And does either one of those guys have a better chance than the other at making the ultimate roster?
I think Ethan Finley is raw, and I like what I see, but I think it's the question of, is he raw in that if you refine and polish some things, that he could be a productive player when it comes to the international level? And I think the jury is still out. When it comes to Jordan Morris, look, he's struggling right now with Seattle. And it's not that he's necessarily struggling. He's struggling within a team that is struggling. And it's just a timing type of issue. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's a bad player. And I think Jurgen Klinsmann has brought him in over the last year. And I think he's become an important part of Jurgen Klinsmann's big, not necessarily first 11, but big group that he has an eye on. But he's going to get competition, and he has. And we've seen what Bobby Wood's done and stuff like that. When it comes to the under-23 team and not qualifying for the Olympics, for Jurgen Klinsmann, it's a loss of an opportunity to send these younger players to a tournament that matters and to get that experience.
I want to move along, and congratulations, Alexi, on a sparkling debut for your brand new podcast, the Mutant Gene Podcast.
Thank you.
And it never hurts to bring on Bruce Arena, who's always going to speak his mind. And while he was very clear to make sure that he was not lobbying for the job of head coach of the U.S. men's national team, he did say that he would be open to returning if he was called upon. Under what scenario could you actually see that happening?
Well, two different scenarios. I think we know that with the Copa Centenario coming this summer, and I don't think it's necessarily a difficult group, but that's the perception right now. If they were to bomb out of the Copa America Centenario, and not just not make it out of the group, but just in spectacular fashion, just go out, losing every single game, I think that there would be a scenario. The other scenario is if they get to the Hex, they're going to get to the Hex. But when they get to the Hex, that we see a scenario much like Mexico went through, where just nothing is going right and there is a real and present danger of not making it to the World Cup.
Alexi, thanks so much. Great stuff, as always. Now, last week, we were asking you guys about Calen Carr and what you thought would be his best position within the U.S. national team setup. You had great responses. We're going to get to some of those in just a little bit. But this week, we want to know about the guys Alexi was just talking about. Who's going to make the Copa America roster for the United States men's national team? Leave your responses in the comments section, and we'll show some of them next week as well. But right now, we're going to talk about MLSers playing for other national teams. Recently, MLSsoccer.com's Calen Carr had a chance to sit down with Sporting Kansas City midfielder Roger Espinoza to talk about playing for the Honduras national team and the importance of their World Cup qualifiers coming up later this year.
You started off qualifying with 2 losses. How much pressure was on you guys leading into that El Salvador series?
A lot of pressure. I forgot how much pressure it was. And then we had to go and win in Salvador, and we had to win. It keeps us going in the World Cup qualifying. But most importantly, you know, it gave the happiness to our country, you know, that it's been going through a lot of problems right now, and people, you know, soccer is the biggest thing in our country. So we're very happy that, you know, now from here all the way to September, people's going to be happy, you know, always thinking that there's still some more World Cup to play.
Second place in the group, you're ahead of Canada just on goal difference right now. You play them and Mexico next. Canada's up first. How important is getting a win in that game?
Us winning there, it puts a lot of pressure in Canada. So that's a must-win game right there, and I think that's pretty much the game that's going to decide if we go through or not.
You see a guy like Kyle Aaron, obviously Canada's main threat. How much does the team lean on you being familiar with his play in MLS or other guys who are in the league?
We just played Salvador, and there was a few guys that were in MLS, and the Honduras coach came and asked, you know, how he plays. I know, but what do you guys see when you play against him? And obviously it's going to be the same thing for the Canadian guys. And, you know, his rookie year last year was unbelievable, and now, you know, he's a forward, strong. I watched him play the last game against Mexico. So I think Lion is going to be a threat for us.
You've played in 2 World Cups now. Do you allow yourself to dream or think about this 3rd World Cup? You'd be in an esteemed group of players that have played in 3 World Cups. What would that mean to you personally?
It's a dream come true. You know, you play to be in World Cups. You play to win championships, and that's why you love the game. And being in the 3rd World Cup, I'll be very happy. You know, I'll be happy that I conquered all my dreams, and I can only say I played in 3 World Cups.
Cool. Well, best of luck with Los Cachachos.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yes.
Cachachos. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Exactly,
Cool.
Yeah.
Boniac will be proud.
Yeah.
And of course with Sporting Kansas City as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Interesting stuff there from Roger, right? Now, before we go, we want to get to some of your responses from last week's question about Calen Carr and his role within the U.S. men's national team. Adam Young writes in, he's got too much talent to be a defender. He's good on the ball and great going forward. Coaches need to develop him as a midfielder. And David Tillstone piggybacks on that. Holding mid, he says. That said, he was the best U.S. player on the pitch in the U23 game against Colombia in Frisco. Only one who could hold the ball and didn't look panicked. And that's going to do it for this week's edition of Club and Country. Thanks so much for joining us. Remember, our question this week is amongst the guys Alexi Lalas talked about earlier in the show, who is going to make the Copa America roster for the U.S. men's national team. Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Maybe we'll show them on next week's show. Thanks so much for joining us once again. We'll see you next week.